Everybody grab a seat if you can, or if you want to stand. That's good too. I'm Roy, by the way. Nice to have you here. Several of us have been thinking that there's somewhere around 40 people, which is, it may be our all-time record for a meeting. So Joel, congratulations.
Thank you.
It must be you, Joel. Right, Jane? It must be him? No, that's his wife. Nice try, Joel. Anyway, thank you. We're gonna do a short business meeting. We got a bunch of stuff to cover, but 10 or 15 minutes at the most, and then we'll start the program, which is why you probably came here. But before we do that, we just like to go around the room and just say who you are and maybe where you're from. If you're new, let us know. Tim Shaw, who's right there. You have any left?
You have a few left.
All right. We have a gift for people that are new and that are here in person. It's a cheat sheet about the St. George River, and it's worth its weight in gold. You know, some of us, it took us years to figure out what Tim put down in 3 or 4 pages. So make sure you identify stuff. But why don't we start over here with Terry? Just name and where you're from.
Terry Bombeck, Camden, Maine.
Patrick Gallagher, Camden, Maine.
George Steppenwell, Camden, Maine.
Okay, Sewell from Maine, or Sewell from Maine.
You guys are related, right? Yeah. Stu.
Stu Rich, St. George.
Tim Shaw, Camden.
Kelly Doyle, Lincolnville. Tom Johnson, Cushing. Tom Bateman, Rockport. Gary Souza, Rockland.
Nate Fogarty, sad.
Let's start back up here.
Dwight and Kelly, Swanville.
Ma'am?
No.
I keep that name.
Oh, I'm
White
sorry.
Kelly.
Wait, Kelly.
Doug Crosley, Englewood, Florida.
Welcome back, Doug. Doug's been fishing all winter.
Washington, Doug, come on.
Yeah.
Washington, Maine.
Yeah. He's newly retired and he spent the entire winter catching fish down in Florida, so we're jealous as hell. Welcome back, Doug.
It was so hot.
Steve Howard, Waldeboro.
Christy Chapman Mitchell, Whitefield. Joanne Mosswell, Belfast.
Art Shane Brooks.
Chris Terrell, Waldeboro.
Dave Williams, Santa Mom. Dan Dwyer, Camden.
Art John, Camden.
Sandy Welty, Camden.
Rob Eddy, Camden.
Don Abbott, Camden. John Nelson, Thomas. Bob McDoom, Warren.
Nice to have you guys with us.
Jane Rabbit, Lincolnville.
Hey, Jay.
Portland Wall, Belfast.
Yeah.
Steve Perth, Union. Dan Daly, Camden. Rob Goslin, Camden.
New? No, yeah. Anybody else forget to say they were new?
You get roasted.
Yeah.
Ryan over here.
Hey,
Kyle. Eric Hackett at Blue Bay.
Mark O'Donnell, Union.
Charlie Leroyers, here's my new.
Yeah, go Charlie.
Walt Stanzik,
Hey, Walt.
Terry Young, also from Lincolnville.
And by the way, if you know, there's lots of great raffle prizes. If you want tickets, Terry still has them. They'll be available for the next half hour or so.
5 minutes, let them all through.
You need the money, Terry.
I'm retiring.
Kelly Daly from Camden.
Nice to have you.
Will Daly, Camden.
Jay Lafleur, Camden.
Leah, Camden.
Jan.
Janet Halsey, Camden.
Okay.
And Joel Lafleur, Camden.
And I'm Roy Hitchens. Nice to have you with us. Thanks for being here. This is our last meeting for the summer. We take the summer off so we can go fishing, and we'll start up again in October, second Tuesday of the month. And it looks like people are enjoying this spot, so we'll be back here. Tim, you want to give us an update on duck trout and conservation?
Yes. We started, everybody knows, we got a little grant from Trout Unlimited International last year to continue our environmental DNA study for 2 more years. That's 2026 and 2027. And the plan this year was that we vetted it with the biologists at the Atlantic Salmon Federation and the Trout Unlimited, and we're doing a little different. We're going to be sampling at 5 locations in the spring, 4 times. So we want to get 4 consecutive samples at 5 locations. And then the fall, we're going to try to catch the returning salmon for the fall run at 2 locations twice. That'll be late October, probably.
You didn't really mean catch, did you?
Well, no, we want them to be in the river when we do our sampling. And so far, we did our first sampling last weekend. We had volunteers, and we went well. And, we're going to schedule our next sampling session. It would be next Sunday, however, this upcoming Sunday, we're predicting to have Easter rain starting Wednesday night. If we get that rain and the river goes to an unacceptable level, we won't be able to do that. So, but I have an email list, and anybody that wants to get on the email list, just see me at the meeting, I'll put you on it, so you get a notification of when we are gonna do sampling. And I need at least 2 volunteers to go with me to do this. One, so I don't get lost, and also to help carry the equipment. So we have a lot of people here who've done it before. It's not that hard. They didn't die. They survived. So it's kind of, you get to learn a little about the river and you get to help science at the same time.
And Tim, what's the goal here? What are we trying to do?
Well, our eDNA that will tell us yes or no, whether there's Atlantic salmon or brook trout in this particular section or river that was sampling. But we're doing cutting edge technology, and we're trying to get a qualitative measure of the concentration, so we can use that as a proxy for electroshocking, get a handle on the biomass. What would be an acceptable level to continue the population? And basically, it comes down to 1,700, has to produce 1,700 smolts a year. The smolt is a 2-year fish that's hatched in the river that leaves after 2 years to go to the ocean. And that's what we're trying to get a handle on. How close are we to that goal? Okay, and yes, sir.
Are we targeting any other species in our eDNA on this?
Not that, we did in 2023 where we did an invasive species, but this, for the grant, we're just doing the cold water fisheries. Okay? Yes, sir.
So, when do you think you get a sense of when we'll know how bad things were on the river last fall?
Well, that's a very good question. Is that we actually had good results in last year, 2025. But this summer, we had, I don't know if you guys realize, we had a 50-year drought in Atlantic Canada and in Maine. And I know certain sections of duck craft basically went under, the water went dry, it was underground. And we're gonna know after this year whether that affected certain sections of the river. Because we have last year compared to, and after we finish the sampling this year, we can compare it to see what's happening. So we will know, I think, by August of this year. By the way, our samples, we collect them. They go to the University of Maine in Orono, and they do the analysis for them at the core laboratory.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm wondering is whether we're gonna see the mold. Maybe we'll see salmon in the fall.
Well, good news is, we've already know once smolt survived the drought. Because we have his picture. All right, so we know that, so it's, Mother Nature has a way, and it's really, it's the concentration. And also, we do our angler survey for people who fish the duck craft. We get about 30 responses, 35 a year, and it's been very consistent on showing the trends of the river. And the last couple of years, it's been pretty good, so we want to see what this year's does. That will also tell us if people aren't catching the fish this year that they have.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Sorry.
Tom Johnson, do me a favor, and just you and Tim maybe hold up that big poster there of the brook trout.
Yeah.
Trout Unlimited was one of the co-sponsors of this. It's a wonderful poster of a lot about brook trout. We have the best population of wild native brook trout in the lower 48 states right here in Maine. I have 30 copies of that we got from the state council. And so if anybody like Patrick for education, or you know some teachers in a school or anything that would like some of that, let me know and we'll get you copies of that. We have 30 of them, and I don't want them to just sit in my basement. Thank you guys, appreciate it. Terry Bombach, Terry's gonna talk about the outing on the St. George on Sunday, May 31st.
Okay, last year we had an outing in May on the St. George River in the Union Appleton area. About 18 to 20 people came up, came over to spend 3 or 4 hours to kind of learn the St. George. See where the various places where you could catch fish, the different fishing techniques that are successful in that specific piece of water. We had a handful of mentors showing different things. Some people needed help with their presentation, different flies, other people needed help with fly selection. All that stuff was kind of addressed this evening. We did a little bit for shoreside instruction. We also hit the water and almost everybody caught fish on the outing. I think I recognize that half a dozen people that were there last year. So we're gonna do it again. It was a great deal. We're gonna start at 10 o'clock on May 31st and run about 3 or 4 hours. Last year, we did a picnic lunch, which we'll do again at the little gazebo in Appleton Village. That is gratis, to the DRTU. And then afterwards, there was an option to stay and fish a little bit longer for anybody who had driven a long distance and wanted to fish more, practice the skills they had learned in the morning. So I will put forward here, that, I'm gonna kind of pass around to anybody who might be interested to sign up, and I can keep you posted. If you know you wanna come, sign up. If you think you might wanna come, sign up, and we will get you all of the information. Then it'll be May 31st at 10 o'clock. Just, if you, anybody here think they would want to attend, if you attended last year, you're welcome to attend again.
And we need some mentors too, so we need 3 or 4 or 5 mentors, people that know the river and could,
Raise your hand. As I walk around, just flag me down. I'll make a little overview.
thanks, Terry. It's a great way to know, the local river. Steve, Grand Lake Stream, this weekend, woo!
Our annual fishing trip from the chapter is this weekend. The conditions are improving at Grand Lake Stream. The Hendrickson Hatch has begun. At the table where Tim is, there's a selection of flies, mostly that boys hide, some emergers, darks and light Hendricksons. And the water flow was a great concern to all of us this year because we were aware of the severe drought that we've been in. I spoke with Steve Trout, and he controls the gate flow from West Grand Lake into Grand Lake Street. I spoke with him Friday, and the gate flow then was about 147, which is way below where normal conditions would be for the middle of May. Normally 300 or 400 would be good, but the forecast, as Tim mentioned, calling for another inch of rain, and that's expected down east as well. So Strout said that if there's adequate rain in West Grand Lake and Sisla Dupsik, which feeds into it, he expects that perhaps by the end of this week, we would raise the gate flow to 180 or 200, and that would really open things up for us. So the check-in time of Weatherby's is any time after 2 on Saturday. We have 40 rods that have signed up, and the assignments are that if anyone does not have the assignment for the meals kitchen, where their cabin is, and see me, I've got a few extra printout copies. So I think the conditions are looking good, and we should have some fun.
Steve, is there a kind of a general meeting where you're gonna go over stuff with people, or?
It's gonna be tough. It's like herding cats when you get 20 anglers and everybody wants to fish and nobody wants to eat. So I really don't know, Roy, but if you'd like to do that, certainly.
No, so dinner is at what time's dinner on Saturday?
5 o'clock dinner. Check in anytime after 2 on Saturday.
Okay, so around 5 o'clock we'll gather and we'll go from there.
And our
Go.
first meal.
Whenever I'm done fishing, then I'll start cooking.
Yeah.
Are you doing one on Saturday?
I'm doing Saturday.
One post haddock to get cold. Doug has volunteered to make a nice haddock dinner for our first meal. And my dear wife for 50 years is gonna bake a couple of cases for dessert. Just
Thank you all.
everybody's taking it.
If you have any questions, look at the emails that Steve sent out or talk to Steve before you leave. It should be a great time. And even if the fish is not great, we're gonna have a good time doing it. All right. Patrick, you want to run out your idea about the summer outing?
Yeah, so we generally have this meeting in May, and then we don't see each other again until, October as like any sort of organized chapter get together. So I threw out the idea of having a get together of just a low key kind of barbecue potluck, someplace that we can enjoy being outside. So I've been talking to Jeff Nathans at the Snow Bowl. He says there's space for us to just have a summer gathering sometime in late July, just a low key get together, have some food, tell some fish stories, arrange fishing trips for the fall, sell some of our own gear like we always do, and have a summer gathering. So I haven't set specific dates yet, but we were figuring, it's summer, people want to be outside, so I was going to set a primary date and then a rain date in case the weather doesn't look good. And then we'll just have some space at the Snow Bowl to get together, have some food and hang out.
It'll be family friendly, so feel free to bring friends or family members. Barb?
Yeah, it's gonna say snowball Oscar Pond. Great place to fish. It had a 17-inch bass there last summer, like.
Good one.
Yeah.
Right.
Passed away, but-
So Barb will be getting free guiding on the Lafleur Pond. That's great. Terry?
On the Great Lakes string trip, I was just down there last week. I would suggest that if anybody has a kayak or canoe or boat, in case the river's too low, I would hit, Grand Lake. Try that. That can produce fish too, so, as an option.
Yeah. So if salmon aren't in, you can go fish for bass,
Yeah.
or maybe salmon up there. Good idea.
Dave Williams has some recent evidence. Right, Dave, on that picture of the dam.
Hey, Sam. Want to hedge your breath? Bring a boat. All right, thank you, Patrick. So we'll get more information. You got a definitive date and we'll send that out to everybody. Let you know, but it should be fun. Main Sport is celebrating their 50th anniversary on Saturday, June 20th, from 10 to noon. They've asked a bunch of organizations like us that partner with them to be present. So we're gonna do our normal kind of fly tying, fly casting, et cetera, and just support them because they're our local fly shop and they've done a great job over the years working with us. So I'll get information out to folks on that. We probably only need 3 or 4 people to help out there. Stu, where's Stu?
Right here.
Ah, there you are. Trout camp.
Trout camp. We've got 12 kids signed up. And all systems are go. Barbara filled our last desperate place for a woman to be a host there, and so
Big arm.
we're pretty excited about that. Gilligan. Thank you to this chapter, not only for the funding support, which is tremendously appreciated, but a couple of weeks ago, we had a work party that went through all the gear, made sure that the waders didn't leak and that the fly rods actually cast, and that was a huge, huge help. So thank you to y'all for your help in getting ready for trout camp. Trout camp will start on Sunday the 14th over on the Kennebec River in Solon. It's gonna be delightful.
Great. Thanks again for your leadership on that, Stu.
Thank you, Roy.
Any questions about anything there? All right, let's go to the program then.
Real quick, Rick.
Yeah, Terry.
I think I've gotten everybody on what's anybody interested in the St. George outing that did not sign? Okay.
And sorry, I'm happy to volunteer as a mentor. Yeah. Joe Lafleur is a longtime member here, avid fisherman, retired surgeon, retired tech guru, lives here in Camden with his wonderful wife, Jane, and a couple kids and grandchildren in the area. And this is a program that we're really excited about because Maine has these wonderful remote ponds and heritage ponds, some of which have never been stopped. And that's a rare thing in the United States today. So Joel's going to tell you about that. He has a specific passion for that, how to find them, how to fish them, what kind of gear do you use, et cetera. So let's welcome Joe Lafleur.
Thanks, Roy. Just checking the meeting here. Check my clock. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. Lee Wolf, who was a famous fly fisherman, mostly in the 20th century, once said, "Trout don't live in ugly places." And believe it or not, I thought of that when I got to this spot, which is in northern Maine. It's a private club, and not every trout fishing pond has beautiful lupin blooming. But this is just a great example of the fact that trout don't live in ugly places. So we're going to talk a lot about that tonight. We're going to talk a bit about wild and native brook trout, like the example here. I am going to talk about where to fish, and there's a concept called spot burning where you don't want to give away all of your secrets. But a lot of this is published information, and I'll be judicious in my sharing of details with you. And I want to talk about logistics and practical things, where to stay, how to be comfortable, how to get there, because some of these places are pretty remote, how to get out on the water, and a little bit about flies and tactics and equipment, because a lot of people spend a lot of time fishing in moving water and rivers and streams, and pond fishing is quite different. So let's start by talking about wild and native brook trout. And as Roy mentioned, Maine, we just have it made here for wild and native brook trout. We have over 1,200 lakes and ponds that are primarily brook trout fisheries in Maine, according to IF&W. We also have this program of state heritage fish waters. This is an actual law passed in 2005. They started with brook trout in places that had never been stocked, so wild brook trout. There were 325 of these in Maine. Every year they adjust this law. In 2007, they added Arctic char to this list as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And in 2014, they expanded it to include waters that haven't been stocked for over 25 years. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. We consider those wild trout. They're self-sustaining, they're naturally reproducing, they're not stocked. And as I mentioned, every year they go through this list, they add things, they subtract things. It was up to 589 heritage waters as of 2024. And again, if you look at Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, they have a handful of waters that you could literally count on one or two hands that would be like these waters. So we are really, really blessed here at Maine with that. Again, this is a law statute in the Maine law that includes the eastern brook trout and the Arctic char. And I'm never sure whether it's spelled with 1 R or 2, but apparently they spell it with 2.
2 R's for me.
Okay.
All right.
There's a whole lot more on Maine Heritage Waters on this website. This is the Native Fish Coalition, which is a national group. It's not just concerned with brook trout, it's concerned with native fish. There is a Maine chapter, and they put out a lot of information on their website about the Heritage Water Program. I think Doug or myself will get you this whole presentation later as a PDF or a presentation, so that you can click on all these links at your leisure and look up tons of information about how many acres are preserved, which ones are fly fishing only, and so on and so forth. But there's a great deal of information on this website. And I'll go over a little bit of that tonight, and then we'll keep moving. So we look at where this land is, and Maine is the most forested state. 89% of Maine is covered in trees, which I think is just a phenomenal statistic. You're looking really at public land, as mentioned here: Baxter, Namakonta, Dabouli, Debskineg, great names. The national parks, national monument. Conservation land, we have a ton of that in Maine now, thanks to the Nature Conservancy, the Appalachian Mountain Club, and other conservancy groups. Private land owned by the timber companies and paper companies, which we're fortunate to have access through. A lot of that is managed by a group called North Maine Woods. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then there is some indigenous land that's owned by the Passamaquoddy and Penobscot nations. If we look at where these waters are, you're really talking about northern Maine. There's a handful here down east. There's a couple down here in the Sebago area. But by and large, you're talking Jackman, Rangeley, Moosehead, Baxter, northern Somerset, and Piscataquis, and Aroostook counties. And this is from the Native Fish Coalition group. We look at fly fishing only. I was actually shocked to see that it's really only 30% of these waters that are purely fly fishing only, meaning you can't even troll. And if you look at this, it's a small subset of that last graph. But again, almost all in northern Maine with a couple of outliers. About half of the waters are no live fish as bait. That's really the bottom line for heritage waters. You can't bring any live fish there, which seems like a fairly low bar. The state also identifies remote trout ponds, and I apologize for the fact that my talk is titled Remote Trout Pond Fishing. I go to more than these 110 trout ponds. They have to be 1,000 feet from the road, any road. They do have additional protection from encroachment by logging and roads and development. And it's interesting, again, that 70 to 80% of these have never been stocked. And again, you're really looking at northern Maine with a couple of outliers here. So I'm going to talk about more than those 110 waters. I'll probably mention 110 waters overall in this talk, believe it or not. Not going to go into detail about every single one, but you'll see them because I have a lot of maps to go over. There's a database of all of these, which is a good place to start if you're looking for places to fish. Right there, the Maine State Heritage Fishwater Database. And you can see here from this information, these places have no record of stocking ever. And these, 1916, 1958, 1941, I think we can agree that these are self-sustaining populations of brook trout. It's important when you look at any data or you're looking for a pond in Maine, believe me, there's, you can see here, there's 2 different snake ponds on here, which seems like an odd name, but there's a million beaver ponds, round ponds, long ponds. We weren't terribly, creative about naming these ponds. So when you're looking them up and you're trying to find out where they are, or should I fish there, or what's the fishing like, make sure you got the right one. And we'll see some further examples of that, sometimes even in the same vicinity, which is just crazy. There are landlocked salmon in many of these heritage and remote waters. That's an example there. And there are Arctic char. And unfortunately, I don't have a picture of an Arctic char because I've never caught one. But there are 14 lakes and ponds in Maine that have Arctic char. Some of you are probably familiar with these. Again, many of these are located in remote areas. As you can see, they're in townships. They're not in organized towns by and large. And this is a chart, again, from the Native Fish Coalition about where these waters are located. And I have no interest in this beer, but there is collaboration between the Native Fish Coalition and the Northwoods Brewing Company, which unfortunately is in New Hampshire. I've been there. But they put a small portion of their proceeds back towards supporting the Heritage Fish Program in Maine, and it's good beer.
Can I interject here a little bit?
Sure.
So I was fishing in Kennebec, and I come out of the river, and the chief pulls in, and the fellow comes out, says, "Hi, how are you?" and so forth. "How's the fishing?" I said, "Not too bad. There's a spot down here. This is the trail we'll take down." He says, "You're interested in beer?" I said, "Sure." He hands me a 6-pack. So I'm the president of the Northwoods.
Oh.
You're my man.
It is good.
So I told him about the Native Fish Coalition, which I'm a board member of.
Yeah.
And he said, "Gee, that's a," and he's into fishing. He's
Yeah.
into preservation. And
Yeah.
all that excellent. So this is what that's what developed.
That's great.
That's how he's given us probably up to this point about $8,000
Oh, good. Good.
for that beer. You can find the beer in different places.
Yeah. They have another one called Landlocks and Brookies, which
Yeah, correct.
it's also good beer, but I don't think the money from that goes to this program.
It's not cheap beer.
It's good though.
It's good.
All right, so let me move on to some practical considerations. We'll talk about where to go and how to get there. Another great resource online is the Maine Lake and Ponds Map Database. You can buy that book of maps from DeLorme, but the maps tend to be very tiny and I can't read them or see any detail. But you can look up any lake or pond in Maine. There's usually a map. You can see this is a relatively small pond, about 20 acres. There's one deep area, so-called, about 16 feet in the middle there. And then there's a little write-up from the fisheries biologists. A lot of these have not been updated in a long time. I don't know why. But they tend to give you a little information about what type of fish are there, a little bit about the characteristics, whether there's good breeding areas, and so on and so forth. So if I'm going to go to somewhere that I've never been before, this is always a place that I go, and I'll print these maps out and bring them with me, or take pictures of the maps on my phone, just for reference. A little bit about other guidebooks. This is a very good guidebook. A lot of people know this, Lou Zambello. It's kind of encyclopedic about every lake and pond and river and stream in Maine and other parts of New England. I would say he's probably as responsible for quote unquote spot burning as anyone, because he lays it right out there, which is great information to have. Here's an example of a chart of ponds around the Greenville area, which again is an area that I go to a lot. You can see the names of the ponds, a little bit about their characteristics, which I would get from the map, and a little bit about the laws, whether it's artificial lure, fly fishing only, which I would get from the state, not from this book, so that you have the most updated information. But it's a great book. If you don't have it, you're interested in fishing in Maine, I would recommend it. His maps are not the greatest. There's not a lot of detail in here, but the one thing that he does have is these little things that I think are supposed to be fish hooks, is how you get into that pond or onto that water. And this is the Debouli area that we'll see in a little bit. And just a little bit about his editorial content. He can talk about what's in the ponds, what flies might work there, a little bit about how the fishing is, and so on and so forth. So it's a lot of information. I just wanted to read a little bit of this paragraph on suggested beginner options, because it goes to what we're talking about tonight. And he also gives you these kind of suggested vacation or long weekend suggestions. If you're in this area, try this, try that. But he says here, if you're a beginner, carry a stable canoe into an accessible remote pond for an evening of fishing. I'll skip over the names of the ponds, but he says they're close to town, small, calm, and a very short walk from the car. Fish a small hornberg, dry fly. There's no need to cast more than 10 feet. Beginner advice. Once your fly's on the water, keep it there. You should catch a few fish. I think that's decent advice for a very, very beginner, and I've actually seen very, very beginners be successful doing it. Another great organization I just want to shout out to is the North Maine Woods folks that manage a lot of the timber and paper owned land in Maine. A wealth of information here on access to their land, camping on their land, and we'll show a little bit of the checkpoints that they manage. So now I'm going to switch into a little bit more detail about specific areas that I have experience with, or that I've heard about, or that I want to go to. And you have to start with Baxter. Baxter, fishing wise, I kind of split into the southern part. Here's Katahdin, the southwest corner in particular, the middle part, and then the northern part. So they're all slightly different. Chimney Pond, no fish. Beautiful spot. Best view of Katahdin. Don't bother fishing there. I had to put that in there. This is an area I've spent a fair amount of time. I'm going here in a couple of weeks. The Kidney Pond and Dacey Pond areas. What I like about these is they have cabins. They're relatively inexpensive. You have a lot of access to a lot of small ponds. They're short hikes. They have canoes at the ponds that you have to sign up for, but they're $1 an hour. And as you can see, there's a ton of small ponds here. All of these have fishing. All of them have canoes. And they're written about in the Zambello book as well. So I do recommend that. There's an example of the Kidney Pond campground, several cabins, sorry, most of which are fairly accessible by car, at least to the cabin. A typical example with gas lighting, mattresses, but no other real amenities. So an outhouse, you have to bring all your food. But it's like $35 a day per person. So it's a real bargain, and a great thing is, citizens of the state of Maine. I'm going to talk about, and I'm going a little fast because I have a lot of material to cover. So if you want to stop me or ask your questions later. The middle part, this is where it gets tough. You can see in this area, there's no road in sight here. This is the whole, I'm going to zoom in on this. It's usually referred to as the Russell Pond area because the ranger station is there. Nice thing about Russell Pond is there is a bunkhouse. So you're not sleeping in a tent or a cabin, even though it's a 7-mile or more hike to this area. And let me zoom in a little bit on that. I went here and I was a little put off by this sign because you do have to cross the river to get to Russell Pond. And I wasn't totally prepared for that, although I did have my waiting staff. It was about to lower to mid-thigh, which is a whole different thing when you're carrying a 29-pound backpack as it is when you're just wading fly fishing. But it's a gorgeous area. There are tons and tons of lady slippers here, more than I've ever seen in my entire life. And here's a picture where I put my pack down about halfway through the hike. It's fairly level, but it is 7.5 miles. And I weighed my pack at the campground and it was 29 pounds, of which about 8 pounds was fishing gear. So here's a more close-up view of Russell Pond area. It's a beautiful pond. It's very shallow. There's moose there all the time. So if anybody ever says, I want to see a moose, all you got to do is hike in 7 miles. I almost guarantee you're going to see moose. There's several of them there, and they come in every day to feed. This lake here is one of the lakes that has Arctic char. I fished there. I didn't catch any, but there are several other smaller ponds in the area. Again, all of these generally have canoes that are available for anyone to use. So this is really, I think, kind of one of the most remote places in Maine that you can get by foot. Because there's no other way in or out of there, 7.5 miles, either from the north or from the south. But it's a great spot. I wouldn't say I've caught any trophy trout there, but very, very fast fishing. The northeast corner has several other ponds. I've been here once. I need to spend some more time up here. You've got the Fowler ponds, and just several other ponds in this area, and South Ridge Pond, which is more towards the middle there. Haven't fished here a ton. I can't tell you a whole lot about it. You generally do enter through the Matagammon Gate in the northern part of the park, so it's a bit more of a hike even than going to Millinocket. I also wanted to mention on the western side of the park, there are some lakes and ponds that are not in the park, but are pretty well known. Soudnahunk Lake, through which Soudnahunk Stream flows out of, Little Soudnahunk and Thistle Pond. These are all accessed from the Telos Road, which is off the Golden Road, which is down here. Very good fishing in those areas. I think we're told that the fishers are so numerous in Soudnahunk that they've become a bit small. So they encourage people to go there and fish. There is a chart of Baxter canoes. This is really hard to find on the website, so every time I find it, I try to take a picture of it. But most of the ponds have 1 or 2 canoes, so you do have to register with the ranger in the area and get the key to them because they're generally locked up except for that area around Russell Pond because I guess they figure no one's going to hump a canoe 7 miles out of the middle of Baxter. 2 miles maybe. I guess you have to lock those. I just wanted to give a shout out to Terrio Flies, and this is probably my funnest place in the Millinocket area. He's a real interesting guy. He has a fabulous fly tying shop. He has a fly shop as well. The fly tying material, I think, is second to none anywhere I've ever been. I mean, he has like a whole small room full of chenille. You know, it's just if you're looking for it, he has it.
I heard that he's retiring this year.
I did hear that too, and so I'm going to try to get up there within a couple of weeks. He never had an internet site. You had to call or mail in your orders. So I generally tend to go, and you can see there's a million pieces of hackle there. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about some other areas. The Appalachian Mountain Club has a lot of land conserved in Maine. This is the Little Lyford area, some great little cabins. They raised their rates a 3 years ago. It used to be a really good deal. Now it's more in line with the other commercial sporting camps in Maine, but it's still a great place. And I have some maps of the Appalachian Mountain Club. Again, you have a cabin, you have 3 meals a day, and they have canoes at most of the lakes and ponds around the area. And we'll show some maps. The Little Lyford Pond area is my favorite, but there are 2 other ones: the Gorman Chairback Lodge and Meta Whistler Lodge, and then West Branch Pond nestled in the middle, which is a commercial area, which is also a great sporting camp. And then Gulf Haggis, which is great hiking, and particularly if you have a significant other who doesn't want to accompany you. Fly fishing, that's a good way to keep them busy and occupied. So just to orient you on the AMC, we're coming in from Greenville on the Katahdin Ironworks Road here. The Hedgehog Gate is run by the North Main Woods. The Katahdin Ironworks Gate is run by the North Main Woods. And the road goes from Greenville all the way over to Brownville. Gorman Chairback is here. That's kind of the southernmost camp. Little Lyford is in the middle, and then Meta Whistler and West Branch are further north. I'll see those in a minute. So I'll zoom into those. I've spent a lot of time in this area. There are ponds right here at Little Lyford. Just a very short walk, like 100 feet or so. There are several other ponds, the largest of which is Horseshoe Pond, but there are several smaller ponds, all of which are a short hike, except for Baker Pond, which is more like 1.5 miles. Good fishing, consistent, relatively fast, not huge fish that I've got there. The Gorman Chairback area is slightly nicer camp, frankly. It's a little bit more modern. The areas that I would concentrate on here are these, the east and west Chairback ponds. I mention them because they're relatively hard to get to. They're like 1.5 to 2 mile hike, and it's not flat. It's the opposite of flat. It's quite steep. The Appalachian Trail is running through here, and there are no AMC canoes at those ponds that I have found. So you have to bring in your own method of access there. But again, these are remote ponds, and the fishing is good there for a reason. The Meta Whistler area, again, I haven't spent a lot of time at Meta Whistler itself fishing, but there are numerous ponds here, including a trout pond, which there are probably a dozen in Maine at least. And then West Branch Pond, which is a great Maine sporting camp with decent fishing there. And again, I'm trying to cover a lot of ground here, so I'm going to keep moving. The Greenville area has some other ponds that are worth looking into. These are all mentioned in Zambello's book. So here's that road out to the Appalachian Mountain Club and that Hedgehog checkpoint. There are numerous ponds here. This is all a pretty active logging area. So I've been there where you can't get through some of those roads because there's skidder in the way. But they're all worth looking into. They're all relatively low pressured areas and have some decent fishing in them. And then east of Greenville, there's some other really accessible areas. Over here in the Little Moose public land. So this is Maine public land. There's several ponds here, Big Moose, Little Moose, used to be Squaw, but that's not considered appropriate anymore. And then Little Notch and Big Indian Pond, again, real creative names. But they're short hikes from the parking areas, like 1 mile or so. And some of the caretakers have left unlocked boats at those ponds, but it's not reliable. Capitol Road is another area that's pretty remote, and this goes from, again, I'm going to zoom in, but the road goes like this from the Somerset Road up in the Rockwood area, the west outlet, down to the Forks area. And this is all one big long dirt road. And as you zoom in, you can see there are numerous ponds, both north and south of this. I've explored this area a little bit. Some of these roads are pretty sketchy. But again, in my humble opinion, the sketchier, the better, because that keeps the angling pressure down. Another area is the Devskineg area, which is just southwest of Baxter, and the Namakanta area. There's a great fishing camp here at Namakanta Lake. Jim Elliott and I went there years ago. There's also a famous canoeing loop around here, which involves some portaging, and there are several other small ponds around here. And I do want to mention the sporting camps often have other places to fish other than the lake or pond that they're on. Like Namakanta Lake, they will have canoes at some remote ponds. I know Cobb's does that. Many of them do, and you just have to ask, are there other places that we can fish? The Dabooley Public Lands in Aroostook County, very well known, but again, it's way up there in Aroostook County. There is a commercial camp at Red River Camps, very, very popular. I think they're completely booked up for the rest of 2026. But there are numerous other ponds in this area, including a couple of lakes and ponds that hold Arctic char. So again, this is on my to-do list. So we talked a bit about Baxter and the AMC camps. I want to get a little bit off the highway, talk a little bit more about the sporting camps and camping, if that's going to be required. Again, the sporting camps is such a resource for the state of Maine. I mean, we have so many things to be thankful for about fishing, and this is one of them. There's a link here to the Maine Sporting Camp Association. Take your pick. They're all generally great. Most of the ones in northern Maine are focused on trout fishing, landlocked salmon fishing, and hunting. Take your pick. They're all fun to go to. I'd like to hit every single one, before my fishing career is over. I'm not there yet. Camping is the other option to get really remote. I talked about the bunkhouse at Baxter. You have to bring a sleeping bag. You have to bring your own food. Camping gets all the way from the deluxe version, like Dan Daly and his scamp here. A very nice painting that I asked him permission to show you. If you're boating, you can bring a lot more stuff. You can bring coolers. You can bring 2-burner Coleman stoves. You can bring camp chairs. Canoeing and boating allow you to bring more stuff, and there are some remote areas that you can get into by boat. I've also set up a bed in my 4Runner, and I'll show you a better picture of that. This is a 4-inch memory foam mattress. It's quite comfortable. And then finally, I do resort to camping if I really want to get somewhere where I know there's no other option, but you do have to carry that in with you. This is a more close-up view. This is a collapsible bed. Got to have a mattress. I'm too old to sleep on air mattresses anymore. And then a comfortable sleeping bag. So I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about direction finding. The Golden Road, again, that's just such a wonderful place in Maine, one end to the other. Here's my preferred transportation. This 4Runner is my favorite way to get there. I can put the canoe on the top, and I have heavy duty tires on this. And again, this is an access spot here. Sometimes they're a little hard to see. We'll look at that in a minute too. You got to have the Maine Atlas and Gazetteer. I mean, what are you even doing if you don't have this? You have to have one. My brother-in-law and I came across somebody completely lost off the Golden Road. She was from out of state. She did not have an atlas. So my brother-in-law, Jane's brother, gave her one of the 3 that he had in the truck. So you have to have that.
Keep them updated too.
Keep them updated because they do change. Yes, that's why he had 3. They were different versions. I love maps, so I always refer to other maps as well as the main atlas. National Geographic puts out a series. These are from the Appalachian Mountain Club. This is from the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, which is like a 400-mile long canoe trail from upstate New York to northern Maine. Not great detail in this, but you can always find something slightly different. And these are adventure maps. Everyone is slightly different. So I like, again, preparing for this is half the fun. So you pull out your maps and you look at them. I also use GPS mapping applications. Take your pick. There's like a dozen or so of them. The one I use is the Gaia app, named after the Greek goddess of the earth, who was the second god created after Chaos, which was the first god created. But there are numerous other applications. Some of them are free. You usually get more features with a paid version. They come with a typical topo map. Obviously, they'll give you directions. They'll point you to where you are on the map. And this one has numerous overlays, so you can choose from U.S. Forest Service, USGS, National Geographic, and so on and so forth. I tend to like the National Geographic fishing and river maps. You can also download your maps beforehand. So if you go off into Baxter or somewhere where there's no access, your map isn't just going to cut out and die on you. I mean, I've had that experience in my car where you go up, you're on the KI road, the Katahdin Ironworks road, and the map just ends. It's like you've fallen off the face of the earth. So you really need to have one of these if you're going somewhere off grid. Another feature I like about this is when you take a picture, it geolocates the picture automatically. And this is a great example. I didn't know, and this is one of, 36 Indian ponds. I didn't know how to get onto this pond by foot. And that's the access point right there. There's no trail on that map. There's the access point right there. And you probably drove by that a few times. Which, it seems like it's not intuitive when you look at this picture, and it looks pretty obvious that that's the way in there, but it can be hard to see. And then finally, which map are we following? So here's a couple examples. And this is from real life. This is the Gaia GPS app. I'm trying to get to Graveyard Point to leave a car. And there's one way in there, and it looks like this road goes from an unimproved road to a better road as you get further on, which seems counterintuitive. But I thought maybe this is a bustling village and there's paved roads. There are not. You look at the main atlas, you've got this road, and it goes from bad road to a worse road, and then you've got all these other roads through there. Well, it turns out when we got to this point here, right about where the boundary of the North Main Woods is and that campsite, that's what the road looked like that we were on. We actually went 1.5 miles down that road and took a picture because I couldn't believe I was driving. Yes, with my son and son-in-law. It turns out that this is the road right here. So you don't take this road, you take this road into Chesuncook Village. And you wouldn't see that on that version of the map. So I learned my lesson there. I always check more than one map, and that's why I have a lot of maps. Safety gear, if you're going off grid, you can now get Starlink, or even just using your iPhone to send an SOS call. A lot of people have these Garmin and Touch devices that use satellite to communicate with. I always bring first aid gear if I'm going somewhere off the beaten path. My wife doesn't worry too much about me, but it's nice to have that immersion for the car, the boat, or backpack.
Joel, do you ever suture yourself?
I have never sutured myself. I've actually never really done anything terrible. I've gotten some minor cuts. But my fear would be, and this is what I carry this for, my fear would be, you fall and break your ankle or sprain your ankle so bad you can't walk out. What was a 1.5 mile hike turns out to be not so much fun anymore. So I carry some stuff with me. It's pretty light to bring a sleeping bag liner and a space blanket. You could at least, if you sent that SOS call, you may be a few hours from getting rescued. Some hand warmers that you can get at Rennie's, a way to start fire with fat wood and a flint and a lighter and some food, and a couple other things like a knife, and you got to have duct tape if you're going out in the woods, and a compass. Not that I would rely on the compass. I would probably be a good boy and
Where's the flask?
stay put. We're gonna get to that. I also carry some gear in my truck because I really don't want to get stuck. I really thought we were going to get stuck on that trip to Graveyard Point. Fortunately, we found the right road and we did not. I don't have a winch yet on the front of my 4Runner. I need one. But if I'm really going somewhere, I will bring my tow straps and my come along. Unfortunately, I've never had to use any of that stuff in the real world. I've pulled bushes out of the front yard with it. I think Carmen mentioned last month the buffs are a great invention. I usually use a buff instead of a bug net. I really don't like bug nets. I do carry tick removal tools with me. They're small and light, and ticks are so common nowadays. And permethrin will help keep them away from you. This is a real game changer, these Sawyer Squeeze water filters. If you've never seen that, or you go off anywhere in the woods, you have a constant source of fresh water now. You don't have to carry a lot of water with you. They've improved the water bags so that they're easier to fill. They work very quickly. They don't impart any taste to the water. Really have to have one. Some other things I like are having a power bank so my phone doesn't die. I usually have my phone with me just to take pictures. I might put it on airport mode or shut it off. But if I'm out for 2 or 3 days, my phone is not going to last. And then I want to keep it waterproof. Headlamps are great when you've gone out too late at night. You've gone, to catch that last catch. You can't find your way back. And then lanyards for everything. And I'll show you that in a second. Getting out on the water, I'm gonna look at the time, I got plenty of time. Canoe, kayak, pontoon boat or float tube. I'm not a big fan of kayaks. They can be light to carry in. You're a little bit lower than a canoe. The great kayaks that, Old Town sells for bass fishing weigh about 100 pounds. So those aren't a great option. Pontoon boats can be. I don't have one, but I've seen people use them. They're relatively light. They are more bulky. So my two options are really canoes and float tubes. And you can see this is a typical remote pond with our Heritage Water sign here and a bunch of boats invariably locked up. They're almost always locked up now. Every now and then you'll find one that isn't, but they usually don't float. Ask me how I know.
Why you bring the duct tape?
Yes. So this is my boat. It's 45 pounds. It's carbon fiber with cherry ribs. You can get them lighter, but they're not going to be as pretty as this one. It will carry two people in a pinch, but I'm generally alone in this. It's 14 and a half feet. And it's for me, it's the perfect option.
Who makes that?
This is made by the Merrimack Company out in the Midwest. They're all custom made. So you order them, they make it exactly how you want. They paint it exactly how you want. You have to wait. They deliver them in the late spring to early summer. They pay a guy to drive out here to New England with about 12 canoes and he delivers them. It's a great canoe. You can buy lighter ones that are all Kevlar. Those I tend to find are a little bit more jumpy in the wind. They don't have enough weight to ballast them. When you're alone, you often want some ballast in the front of these because the wind is going to push you around a bit. Again, everything needs to be waterproof and lashed down. You can get canoes into areas by portaging them. That's generally a no for me. If I'm with someone, I don't mind carrying in a canoe a short distance. But if I'm on my own, for me, putting that thing on my back and throwing it on the roof of the Forerunner, it's not that hard, but I really don't want to carry it a quarter of a mile. I do have a dolly, and this can be an option when the path is fairly flat, of which there are some places in Maine. Not a ton, but I've been to a few of them. You have to lash this down very well. These dollies are really made for smaller boats like kayaks. And you have to make sure that it's very balanced. But once you do, you can pull this thing along behind you with one hand, like you're not even carrying anything. It's quite nice. The trail has to be good. That's the thing. Again, just some random pictures of lots of canoes. Most of the landowners are not real happy with all these canoes that have been somewhat abandoned over the years. So they are trying to clean them out, but it's kind of a time-honored Maine tradition to have one of these canoes at a remote pond. If you can't do that, then a float tube is a decent option. I will say this is your basic float tube. They come in two other versions, the deluxe version, which is more comfortable, and the ultralight version, which is obviously lighter. I don't have either one of those. I have the middle of the road thing. Again, you can see I've got my little forcep here, but it's got a lanyard on it. So everything is lashed down if I'm going to go out of the water, because if it isn't, it's either going to sink or float away. You propel these with fins. You can't go terribly far. You can't go terribly fast. You can get out in the water far enough to explore things, to get your back cast free. You're pretty much sitting at the water level. But again, I've had some great experiences carrying this into remote ponds when there's no other option. You actually do have to have a PFD. This is a watercraft. My lawyer friend over here, and the other one back there. You got to be careful with the inflatable ones because you can't get them wet. And again, don't ask me how I know. Those are great for carrying in when you're going to a place with a canoe, but you don't know if they have a paddle or a life jacket, like most of the AMC and Baxter places. I'll bring this thing with me and make sure it stays dry. I have a little compression pack. You can get this thing down pretty small. It's maybe 10 inches by 12 inches. You can put them on your back inflated, but it's really cumbersome to hike that way, I find. So I compress them down, and I have this great little tiny pump. It's about 1.5 inches to 2 inches long. It'll inflate the float tube in a few minutes, deflate the float tube. And it's just a great invention. And I think they actually make them even smaller now.
How big is that compression pad?
Like I said, it's probably 12 inches by 8 inches by the time you get it all down there. Yeah, it's pretty small. And the ultralight ones are even a little bit smaller, but I didn't fork out for that. Dry bags, again, enough said, gotta have plenty of dry bags. I've got a whole bunch of those. This is one of my favorite things. Someone taught me this one, the travel anchor. So you go to a pond with a canoe and the wind is gonna blow you around. You wanna stay in one place. Oftentimes there's an anchor, but oftentimes there isn't. You take a little vegetable bag, you put a knot in it, you find a rock that's not real sharp or a bunch of rocks, you put them in there, you tie that off with some paracord, and you've got a great little anchor. And then when you're done, you can empty it out. I always have this thing with me just in case.
Lobster bait bag.
Lobster bait bag's probably more durable. Fly rods, I generally bring two. I bring a floating line and a sinking line. This is one of those boats that wouldn't float. Unfortunately, I was so overjoyed to see this at a pond that I had hiked in about 2.5 miles, but it didn't float. Oh, well. Reading the water can be a challenge because, again, it's not like a stream where you can see the obvious structure. Most of these ponds are small enough to cover a lot of the territory, and you look for the obvious things: rocks, submerged logs, any activity, obviously, where things are hatching, inlets, outlets, areas. If you've looked at your maps and you see where the deep areas are and where there are drop-offs, those are all clues to places that you can fish. But frankly, a lot of these are fairly small, and if you're in a canoe, you can cover a lot of the territory. If you're allowed to troll, that can be a halfway decent area to cover a lot of the pond. Fly fishing only strictly, no trolling. But again, if it's allowed, that's a good thing to try. Flies for remote ponds, facetiously, I think Lou Zambella said just use a Hornberg, and he's not far from wrong. Fly selection is not that important unless there's a specific hatch. I'm just going to show you real quickly some of the ones that I like. The Wood Special would probably be my favorite for pond fishing. The maple syrup is a hexagenian nymph. Terrio Flies invented that. And then other streamers that we typically use in Maine. As far as, there's a little bit about the Wood Special created by Joe Sterling in Maine. Got to support Maine flies, right? Dry flies, again, unless something specific is hatching, in general, I'm talking about a general attractor fly, like the parachute Adams. I like these Trout flies for some reason. I tie them with EP fiber, which is hydrophobic. They float like a cork forever. So these I will often use interchangeably with the parachute Adams. Emergers, I tend not to use those a ton on ponds, but there may be places where those are helpful. And I'm just going to go through this as quickly as I can. Hornbergs and muddlers, again, classic Maine flies. The hybrid, the muddler Hornberg, substitutes the mallard or wood duck for the turkey feather. I think that's a great looking fly, and I didn't tend to use that more. I tend to use the Hornberg a lot. Nymphs, again, I haven't used a ton. Dry dropper is an option, obviously, but pond fishing not as important. The dragonfly nymph is a thing I learned about at West Branch Pond, fishing with some of Jim's friends who take a lot of fish, and we opened up their stomachs and found they were full of these dragonfly nymphs. The MC hammer nymph is short for multivarigated chenille. And that is a pattern that I found that supposedly works for the dragonfly nymph. The holy grail of pond fishing, obviously, is the hex hatch. This is a Troutsman's hex pattern from Kelly Galoop. I like the looks of this fly. I tied a whole bunch of them. They're obviously quite large, but I haven't been successful with that yet. So I'm coming down to the end here. I just want to talk a little bit about my bucket list. I mentioned Dubuli. It's a great area. The Allagash Wilderness Waterway. I've been to Allagash Lake, but not the river itself. The hex hatch, I think every Maine fisherman thinks about getting into that in late June, early July. I mentioned the winch for my forerunner. Again, Jay. And the Arctic char.
Spelled Charlo.
I'm sorry. All right, so we're coming down to the end. So I just wanted to give a few last minute reflections on pond fishing. This is the old sign from Little Lyford Camps. Quite charming. It's great for introducing beginners to fly fishing. I have fished with people who can only cast 10 feet, and they do catch trout. Again, you're not gonna be teaching them complex things like, you know, how to mend or the currents and things like that. But for getting people started, you don't have to worry about their catching back casts or forward casts on trees. You have to watch out for your head. It's also good for people who aren't as steady on their feet wading in fast water. You still have to get into a boat. Tend to avoid crowds. Again, if you've hiked in 7.5 miles or even 2.5 miles, you're not going to see a ton of people. I'm often all by myself in these areas. And I'm chasing wild trout in beautiful places. And these are some of the beautiful places. I like this little line here in the fall between the deciduous and the evergreens. This is the classic thing when you've hiked in a mile or two and you finally get to that pond and you just love to see that you've reached your destination. Here's an example, you know, of a trout, slightly different color than a lot I've seen. This is Rocky Pond, believe it or not.
I've been there.
And it is rocky, and there's Little Rocky as well, and that's OJI Mountain in the background. But the native people thought that the bear had caused those with his claws, I believe. Beautiful spot, Baxter. This is Lobster Lake. This is a short paddle from Lobster Stream. Again, it's very busy in the hot summer weather in July and August with family groups, but in fishing season, I met the ranger and they said, I think there's one other person on the lake tonight. Just chilling at Baxter at Kidney Pond. Beautiful sunset. I like this picture. I mean, this is the shortest, stoutest brook trout I think I've seen in a while. And again, just great colors, probably pre-spawning trout there. Again, this was a road that I had to walk in on. It's gated, but you know, you never know when you're going to see grouse or moose along a road like this in the fall. Pond smoke, the corollary to sea smoke. Beautiful sunset. I think I'm going to imagine that these are rises over here. Again, more fog. I tend to be out, you know, early in the morning and in the evening. Pond fishing is a great place to bring families and kids because again, you can kind of corral them as opposed to being on a river where, you know, it's a little harder to keep them all in one place. Again, just beautiful sights. Here's the forerunner in its native habitat. You can see this, the sun is going down, the fly rod's up, and I've got a nice fire going there. Just another beautiful spot. This is Allagash Lake. Again, the only person I saw on this lake for 2 or 3 days was the ranger going up to the northern part of the lake. Yes.
All right, I'm pretty sure like, I saw my first car, Toyota Camry.
Yeah.
What's a great place to start with? Semi-decent road.
You can do these roads in a car, most of them in a car. I did that in a sedan for a long time. Again, it depends on the time of year. Early in the spring, the roads can be a bit muddier. But I can talk to you later about some ideas. That area around Greenville is actually on both east and west are pretty decent because you don't have to drive very far on a dirt road to get to those spots. That's a good question. Again, Allagash Lake pretty much had it to myself and the bugs. You never know who you're going to meet. This is a woods special. Again, one of my favorite streamers and a decent brook trout. And then we generally don't like to see these guys. But I don't think they had fishing on their mind at this point. This is Allagash Lake, and they're even more off the screen here. And you'll see in a minute what they're doing. They're showing off. Showing off. So that's what I have. I did include some references in the presentation. Those are all links that you can look at. There's another book by Bob Mallard on fly fishing in Maine. And that's it. Thank you.
Joel, that was fabulous.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I'll do the raffle. Joel?
Other questions?
How many of those ponds have you actually been?
You know, I should probably try to figure that out. I think I covered, you know, with pictures and the maps and everything, I counted them through the presentation. There were probably like 125 ponds there. I probably fished 30 to 40 or so. I try to get out to different places all the time. I go back to some of the ones that I've been to, but like I said, I've never been to Debuli. I want to go up there and look around, and it's a great area. But I don't think anybody could ever make a, you know, it's like birding. You probably couldn't get them all. Yeah.
You know if Pierce and Upper Pierce are on the list?
Pierce Pond.
Yeah, Tom's Camp.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can look it up in that, and Pierce. Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah.
Is it pretty hard to get a reservation at Baxter?
I should have said Baxter reservations go 4 months rolling. So if you want to get May, you have to back up 4 months. I mean, if you wanted one in May right now, you might be out of luck. You could look at the website. I generally put a tickler in my calendar for January. And it's 4 months in advance. They all open up. So right now you can book for the next 4 months, but beyond that, you can't book until you get to that point.
Other question.
Way back.
You said you use height in 2 rods, like you got a fluid. When you run in for sinking, you change it up? Or?
Occasionally I'll use a sinking poly leader on a floating line. Most of the ponds are deep enough that I don't hook up even using a full sink line, not just a sink tip, but a full sink line. Most of the time I'm using like a wood special or a maple syrup, which have no weight on them, so they're not sinking on their own. I'm sure you could use just about anything. Like I said, a poly leader of 6 to 12 feet will get your streamer down a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do the raffle, Terry over in that corner, and you want to sign up for St. George outing.